Hi everyone, you're very welcome to our podcast Narc Con today with myself and Remy. We have kindly been sent in an essay that was written by the son of a narcissistic father, and it's poignant. It really opens up the heart to what children go through when they have a narcissistic parent. This mom has asked her son for permission to share it on our channel, and he has really generously allowed us to read this out without identifying features, obviously, to give some insight into what a child will go through and the damage a narcissist can be doing, even though you may think in some instances that it may be better for the children to stay with the narcissistic parent. And that does have validity in certain circumstances, because the narcissistic parent may be so powerful, or you feel they're so powerful because they will have groomed you to believe that you feel you would lose custody altogether of the children, and that you come down on the side of the least evil would be to stay and try and protect the children. So understandable in those circumstances. If you are in those circumstances, do whatever you feel is right, but maybe try your best to get legal advice and to see what the situation would be if you did take the children away from the narcissistic parent, and do your best to show them a normal life. Now, this boy has huge insight. This is an experience he had, I think, when he was much younger, and he has since remembered every detail of that experience and put it in an essay form when he was in high school. And I hope I have that right, those details right. I believe that there's a divorce process going on, or that you are now away from this narcissistic father. Thank God. This reflection, I hope, will give insight to anyone that actually has a narcissistic parent, to maybe feel validated by it and understand that it's all about the narcissist, that other people go through this also, but it's nothing to do with you. But the narcissist will use their children because they feel they own their children, and they will entrap their children in as far as they can until the children rebel or grow up, or are supported in not having to deal with this parent on an ongoing basis, or at least not every day. So let's read the experience of this young man and understand that you are not alone in going through this, and understand that it has nothing to do with you or your value as a person. In fact, the more vitriolic and the more aggressive and insulting a narcissist is with you, actually, the more threatened the narcissist feels by your morals and good qualities, because you're reflecting light, and the narcissist does not like that. So you're making the narcissist uncomfortable. They will try and destroy you. And the more and the stronger you are, the more they will try and destroy you and make you compliant and destroyed and in agreement with them at every hand's turn. So let's get into it without further ado. 8:45. I am late for school. The voice was soft at first, gentle even, a kind, helping nudge to get me swiftly on my journey. Despite my mother's insistence to drive instead, it offered to drive me, and I hurriedly accepted, not wanting to be late. I briskly tied my shoes, ran to the car, and hopped in the passenger seat. It got in the driver's seat, and the car pulled out of the driveway. And I notice you call this father it. I think you must sense something other in him. The voice wasn't saying much now, a blank expression on its face. Maybe it was focusing on driving, I thought. A meagre attempt to distract myself from the growing tension building in the car, as the once warm atmosphere that had enveloped me quickly dissipated. The voice didn't speak, but it didn't have to. Oh my God, this is so incredible in relation to your experience of energy and your experience of the energetic personality that doesn't need to speak to get across what it means. In the silence, in the smallest of breathing that a narcissist does. If you've been groomed by this narcissist, you understand the minutiae of the notes, of the breath, of the silence, of the movement of the person. You nearly have to be through it to understand the orchestra that a narcissist will play out for you in silence. Okay. It got in the driver's seat and the car pulled out of the driveway. Sorry, I'm just going over this. The voice wasn't saying much now, a blank expression on its face. Maybe it was focusing on driving, I thought, a meagre attempt to distract myself from the growing tension building in the car, as the once warm atmosphere that had enveloped me quickly dissipated. Apologies, I'm going back on the story. The voice didn't speak, but it didn't have to. My heart sank, as all I received from the voice was cold, stony silence. The tension grew, almost suffocating. My heartbeat echoed in my head as I grew aware of my surroundings, constantly glancing between the clock and the road, just willing for the time to pass quicker and the drive to go faster. I was no longer sure if it were to get to school on time or to escape the now unbearable pressure that had seeped from the car and into my mind. The voice knew what it was doing. It was working. The voice began to speak. Little things at first. Things I could just brush off and continue with my day. But now and then the voice got louder, harsher, and more hurtful, spitting out vicious lashes to claw at my self-worth. Nothing I couldn't deal with, though. After all, this wasn't my first encounter with the voice. This was nothing. What would be the difference of one more crack on an already broken mind? I had developed ways to avoid its malevolence. I zoned out. I couldn't physically leave the car, but my mind could. My mind could not listen. My mind could distract me. My mind could let the insults and threats pass right through me. I just zoned out and didn't pay attention. Sticks and stones, right? Not quite. Sometimes the voice would find a weak spot, a vulnerability. Even though I have no outward reaction, it caught my mind off guard and snapped me back to reality. I was back in the car with no escape. I was cruelly trapped and forced to listen to every malicious word. Each sentence felt like a punch to the stomach, winding the air out of me. My eyes were glazed over, and my body was sitting perfectly still, unsure if the slightest movement would make it more enraged. Despite this lack of reaction, the voice knew the pain and the hurt it was causing me, and it did it anyway. It knew it had found the sweet spot. It hurt me just enough to make me obsess about it all day, but not too much to expose to me that it was in the wrong. That was part of its masterfully crafted plan. I had to be in the dark about whose fault that was. The voice was deceitful. It could weave and twist my mind to believe what it wanted. Maybe I was in the wrong. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe If I had just gotten ready on time, then this wouldn't happen. It was deluded, and like a disease, it was spreading to me. The delirium felt like a fog. I could feel the confusion swirling around me. It was dense and heavy. Like every breath of it made me fall deeper into madness. I felt so angry and scared. I could have blown up with rage or crumbled in fear. I was frozen, quiet as a mouse, yet screaming internally. The voice overpowered me without even having to lift a finger. It towered above me. It was Everest, and I was a mere pebble caught in its dark shadow. I sank into my seat, subconsciously retracting my body away from it, trying to get as far away as possible within the bounds of the moving vehicle. That's exactly what the voice wanted. A trap where it could berate me, and I had no choice but to just sit there as my mind digested its verbal poison. The words stung. The words hurt. The words broke me like thousands of lashes into my soul, leaving scars that may never fully heal. The voice was cold and calculated. It knew I had nowhere to run to. This was not a telling off, but something much more sinister, something personal, some kind of rage that had been boiling for so long that the teapot was starting to screech. This was not about me being late for school. It was a vendetta, highly targeted and moulded specifically to cause me the most pain. This is incredible writing about what a narcissist does, spiritually destructive. This is incredible. The voice observed and listened and noted what triggered me, what upset me the most, and threw it all in my face when I was forced to listen. It was an attack, not physically to my body, but to my soul. I sometimes wish it had hit me instead, something that would leave a visible mark, something that would cry for help when I felt I could not. What it said did leave marks. It's just they were almost unnoticeable. A black eye or bruise wouldn't have instantly raised alarm bells, but the marks it left on me made me more reserved as it chipped away at what little confidence I had. Of course it wouldn't hit me though, as it was just a voice and nothing more. This was regular. This felt so extremely normal. A quiet car journey would have felt unusual. I was just its verbal punching bag. It was so bitter and miserable with its life that it took it out on me, and all I could do was sit there as this rageful torrent flooded the car and washed over me. I regret not speaking up and not saying anything. But this was all I knew, so of course I didn't speak up. How could I speak up against something I thought happened to everyone? So I dealt with it in my own unhealthy way. I blocked it out. I felt numb, like I was an audience watching my life go by. I wasn't even really there, like a hollow shell of a human. That's called, in psychological terms, dissociation, when the stress we're under is so destructive that we go somewhere in our mind to protect ourselves so that we maybe daydream, think of something else, try and zone out to protect our mental health, our soul, our spirituality, everything, to keep it together. It's an internal protection. I felt numb. I was an audience watching my life go by. I wasn't even really there, like a hollow shell of a human. My body was in a state of pure survival, and I didn't retain the words that were shared. But nothing can take away the feeling of utter despair I felt in that car. I do, however, remember one cutting remark the voice roared. "If we got into an accident, it would be your fault." My fault? My fault? It was the one behind the wheel. It was the one driving erratically, because it simply could not contain its pure rage and hatred towards me, all because I was late for school. Yet it would be my fault if we had crashed, been injured, or died. Its sheer road rage was causing it to roar as if feral at me and anything else that moved. But it would have been my fault. I wish I had screamed at it, shouted back at it, yelled back and said how ridiculous and terrible that comment was. I wish I had done anything at all except just sit there. Not that it would have changed anything. No. It would have given it, the dad, the person, whatever you want to call it, more unjustified justification for raging further and blaming you further. It was never, ever anything to do with you or being late for school. It was the rage and vitriol and the jealousy and the darkness within this person that was bursting over and had to come out. He had to spew it up to get it out so he could feel half normal. That's why narcissists need other people in order to regulate themselves. Finally, we arrived at the school gate, which was my only chance to escape. The voice was still yelling obscenities as I collected my bag and prepared to open the door. As soon as I did, I felt all the tension lift off me. I could breathe. The horrible atmosphere left the car and my mind cleared. I was back to reality. I felt at peace, like I had woken up from a horrible nightmare and realised none of it was true. I was back to normal. I stepped out of the car and swung my bag onto my back as I looked back at the now dead, silent voice. It was blankly staring ahead, not even looking back at me. "Bye, Dad. Loved you. Love you," I said quite innocently. He drives off, not a single word. 8:52. I arrive at school just on time. I hope, my friend, given your insightfulness and wisdom and great talent for the expressive word, for explaining better than I've ever heard what it feels like to be attacked verbally and non-verbally by a narcissist in a trap, in a close encounter where you can't escape. For what it's worth, in my opinion, you did exactly right. You escaped in your mind as much as you could. You're a survivor, and with that type of insight, you will thrive in life. Work on yourself so that you depersonalize the experience in as much as you can. Feel whatever you need to feel about your father. I think at the end, if you can use anger to motivate yourself to move forward in your life, at some stage you may reach compassion from a distance and forgiveness for the absolute darkness that he was prepared to lash at you, his own son and blood. So that's what I would say to you in relation to that. Thank you for allowing and your mum for suggesting and allowing us to share it within our community. That's going to resonate with a lot of people who've been trapped in cars or other places with narcissists and have felt that they're probably the only person in the world that is so bad that somebody is that angry at them. And in fact, it has nothing to do with the person that's receiving that vitriol, rage and anger, but everything to do with the creature it's coming out of. So thank you once again. And that's it for now. We will see you again very soon. Please take care of yourselves, everyone, in the meantime.